How do you know when you've given a great commencement speech? Loud cheers? Standing ovation? Man, not so much. You know the deal with standing ovations. When the speech is less than stellar, a couple of friends or family in the audience will rise to their feet, and then others will join in because they don't want the 3 or 4 standing to be embarrassed. And then that second wave causes others to join, and before you know it, you've got a full standing ovation. So no, the standing ovation is not a good indicator of a great commencement speech. In fact, measuring a great commencement speech is really hard to do, and frequently the evaluations change over time. But on the other hand, you know when you've given a really awful commencement address. That's pretty easy. When the speech gets negative headlines and then gets continuing media coverage after those headlines, you've given a bad speech. Just ask Harrison Butker, place kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, who gave a rousing commencement address in which he told the male graduates to hold fast to their masculinity and told female graduates that they have been subjected to the big lie, that their true happiness lies with being a wife and mother. Now, as a place kicker, Butker does not see a whole lot of action on the field, but typical of the NFL, there actually was a play-by-play commentary of the speech. Let's take a listen. Butker takes the stage, the mic is up, and Butker plants his foot in his mouth. The speech is up and, oh, it's wide right, way to the right. That speech is so far right, it's out of the stadium. And the field judge, Genghis Khan, is signaling that the speech is no good, too far to the right. Yes, he really slipped on a turd there. Now, the NFL is not the only entity to weigh in on Butker's speech. Critique has come from many different corners, but the most important group to comment on Butker's speech are the Sisters of Mount St. Scholastica, the religious order that founded and sponsored Benedictine College. They issued an unequivocal statement denouncing the speech and posted it on their website. The statement reads, "The Sisters of Mount St. Scholastica do not believe that Harrison Butker's comments in his 2024 Benedictine College commencement address represent the Catholic, Benedictine, liberal arts college that our founders envisioned and in which we have been so invested. Instead of promoting unity in our church, our nation, and the world, his comments seem to have fostered division. One of our concerns was the assertion that being a homemaker is the highest calling for a woman. We sisters have dedicated our lives to God and God's people, including the many women whom we have taught and influenced during the past 160 years. These women have made a tremendous difference in their world, in their roles as wives and mothers, and through their God-given gifts in leadership, scholarship, and their career." That's a pretty clear statement that the Benedictine sisters want no association with Butker and his right-wing beliefs. And to draw the point home, they slap him upside the head by appropriating his caveman use of the term homemaker. They write, "Our community has taught young women and men not just how to be homemakers in a limited sense, but rather how to make a gospel-centered, compassionate home within themselves, where they can welcome others as Christ, empowering them to be the best version of themselves. We reject a narrow definition of what it means to be Catholic. We are faithful members of the Catholic Church who embrace and promote the values of the Gospel, St. Benedict, and Vatican II, and the teachings of Pope Francis." Ouch! Harrison, my man, that's not a Catholic elementary school nun smacking your palm with a ruler. That's being taken out to the woodshed. The most serious pushback these nuns give is precisely who gets to define what it means to be Catholic. And it's clear Harrison Butker and his right-wing backers should not get a voice in that. Now, the biggest irony here is that part of the speech where Butker told graduates to stay in their lane, when he so clearly did not. Take a look.
"It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform, but God has given it to me, so I have no other choice but to embrace it and preach more hard truths about accepting your lane and staying in it.
Clearly, Butker does not take his own advice. It's easy to see why he would be religious. His ability to kick is nothing short of a gift from God. There are 1,000 guys out there who work harder than he does, hoping to be NFL kickers, but they are not, and he is, because he is a great kicker. Credit where credit is due. But the hand of God touched Butker's leg, not his head, and that's where he strays way out of his lane. Notice the impish little grin and the pride he holds in thinking that God has given him this platform to speak his mind? No, Harrison, some wealthy donor or right-wing administrator gave you the platform to speak. And the sisters of Mount St. Scholastica want you to know that. What their statement makes clear is that the purpose of faith, religious belief, and spirituality is to open up our minds to the complexity of existence, to expand our understanding beyond where reason can lead us, not to shrink it with doctrine. Faith isn't meant to supplant reason, but to enhance it. Every good Catholic is supposed to know that, Harrison. Now, every major religion has large groups of people who do the opposite, who close their minds along narrow lines and judge negatively everything else that doesn't fit. And this is the lane that Butker works in. He tries to convey to graduates they will be happy if they just put their heads down and do what religious leaders tell them. That's not faith, that's submission. And the nuns call him out for it. Coincidentally, so did Pope Francis. Speaking to Nora O'Donnell, the Pope said this about American conservative Catholicism and its leaders.
There are conservative bishops in the United States that oppose your new efforts to revisit teachings and traditions. How do you address their criticism?
You used an adjective, conservative. That is, conservative is one who clings to something and does not want to see beyond that. It is a suicidal attitude. Because one thing is to take tradition into account, to consider situations from the past, but quite another is to be closed up inside a dogmatic box.
Pope Francis has placed more women in positions of power than any of his predecessors.
So the nuns of Mount St. Scholastica called out Harrison Butker, and the Pope called out the right-wing bishops who support that kind of thinking. Sadly, that's the kind of recipe that can lead to a book deal for what will then be described by the right as a victim of cancel culture. But before you sit down and talk to your ghostwriter, here's my advice, Harrison. Stay in your lane. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.